Hi, I'm Nicholas Magrino from Shoresides. Public media, community media, is essential. It's where we reflect our world through your neighbors' stories. This year, Shoresides has been challenged by Newsmat, which means every dollar you give between November 1st and December 31st will be matched dollar for dollar. It takes about $410 to produce one Shoreside story, covering our producers, the tools, and the time it takes to get it right. Help us tell the next one. Big, little, or somewhere in the middle, your support goes a long way. Visit shoresides.org. That's www.shoresides.org. And thanks for listening.
Northeastern North Carolina, and to some extent Eastern North Carolina, but particularly Northeastern North Carolina, has been kind of an afterthought.
A story woven through the state's history is unfolding again in North Carolina: controversial congressional redistricting, or as some would call it, gerrymandering. The heart of this fight lies in northeastern North Carolina, along the majority black coastal counties known as the state's historic Black Belt. Welcome to Shoresides, where we explore coastal North Carolina's past, present, and future to promote community resilience. I'm Lena Hong. In this series on redistricting, I'm tackling one of the biggest ongoing political issues in our state, playing out in the Black Belt. In today's episode, we hear from two born and raised Eastern North Carolinians. David Cecelski is a historian from Carteret County who tells stories from and about the region. And retired lawyer James Williams Jr. grew up in the Black Belt during the Jim Crow era. Our story begins in the late 1890s, when white supremacists dismantled North Carolina's first black majority congressional district. It would be almost 100 years before the region elected another black representative. But despite the lack of black North Carolinians in elected office, residents would remain politically active in the Jim Crow era and throughout the civil rights movement. Since then, there have been a steady number of black elected officials. We're on the cusp of another moment in the state's history where lawmakers are seeking to disenfranchise black voters. Just like people, places have moments that shape what they become.
The big moment for all of North Carolina, in my eyes, is the white supremacy movement in 1898, 1900. Not just because it was important then, but because it shaped so much of what we have today, including what people learn about North Carolina history.
That's David Cecelski, a historian focused on coastal North Carolina. He grew up in Carteret County and has written extensively about the region.
The Democratic Party, which at that time, unlike today, called itself the Party of White Supremacy. And it comes back into power. They gerrymander the state's elections so that there's only one congressional district in which African Americans will have a chance to elect any of their own. That's in the northeast part of North Carolina. It comes to be called the Black Second.
The Black Second may have started out as a way to limit black political voices, but it had an opposite impact.
And in that area, throughout, over along the Virginia line, down to Albemarle Sound, down towards like Rocky Mountain, Wilson, in that area, there's often an African American congressman. The last one is George Henry White, but there's also many local black officials.
That representation came to an end as white supremacist lawmakers dismantled the Black Second through redistricting by the beginning of the 1900s.
The white supremacists are trying to tear down a world, and that world includes the Black Second, where African Americans could have political power.
Laws that aim to disenfranchise and discriminate against black Americans continued throughout the Jim Crow era.
It sounds funny to say it, but basically maintaining white supremacy was a messy job.
That certainly was true, as the civil rights movement gained momentum in North Carolina, despite a hotbed of Ku Klux Klan activity that aimed to maintain the racial hierarchy of the South. Retired lawyer James Williams Jr. grew up in the Black Belt during that era.
Plymouth is my hometown, which is the county seat of Washington County, and well, Plymouth, it's a small town, population wise. I mean, probably now, I don't know. My guess is probably 4,000 at the most. That might be being a little generous.
2023, Plymouth's black population was close to 70%. Washington County's largest ethnic group is also Black Americans.
So I have a lot of pleasant memories of Plymouth and growing up there, but I also know a side of Plymouth that in Washington County that's not so present. I mean, I grew up during the Jim Crow South.
Throughout his childhood, he described all the ways Black people were expected to be mindful of white people.
To be told, and if you're walking on a sidewalk, that if a white person passes by, that if you don't step off into the street, you give them plenty of space, and that you don't, you be careful about looking white folk in the eye, and careful about how you look at white women, and be told best not to even look at them at all.
By the 1960s, North Carolina had earned the nickname Klansville, USA, reflecting the state's unusually high Ku Klux Klan membership.
There was assaults and threats by the Ku Klux Klan. Some of the biggest Klan rallies in the country, certainly in the state of North Carolina, took place right there in Washington County near Plymouth in response to the civil rights efforts.
Despite increasing KKK activity, times were changing. North Carolina started to desegregate schools, and Williams was among the first Black students to attend Plymouth High School.
At the time I started high school, I had been a part of the civil rights movement in terms of going to marches and rallies and things of that nature.
Williams recalled the summer before he started high school in 1965, when KKK members attacked protesters who had been organizing nightly civil rights marches in the town.
It was sometime, it was probably around 11 o'clock or so, because I know we were all asleep, and there was this kind of banging at the door. And my dad went to the door, and it was my friend Alex. And he had with him, one of the civil rights workers.
The worker's name was Michael, and he had come down from the West Coast that summer to help with civil rights efforts in Plymouth.
And so Alex said to my dad, he was like, "Can Michael stay here? Can it stay here for the night because the Klan has attacked the Freedom House, and if they find him, they're probably going to kill him." And so my dad said, "No, I can't have him stay here. I mean, I got my family here, and if they come after him, they might hurt us."
Williams and his friend ended up taking Michael to a nearby elementary school, where he stayed there until the morning.
And we felt he would be safe there and nobody would come there looking for him. We were very careful.
Instances like that were normal, and even in the face of violence, Williams and countless other Black residents in Plymouth and across the region organized and fought for their equal rights. By the late 20th century, there were more Black elected officials in the region, from county commissioners and school board members to congressional representatives. Eva Clayton was elected in 1992 to represent the newly formed 1st Congressional District. She was the first Black woman to hold the role and the first Black person since the Black Second. So fast forward to today. As it stands, the Republican-drawn congressional maps will be used for next year's elections. Advocacy groups and affected voters have sued on the basis of racial gerrymandering. And right before Thanksgiving, federal judges ruled in favor of the lawmakers. I talked to Williams a few days before the ruling.
There's no justification for it, period.
And Cecelski says this moment reminds him of what happened at the turn of the 20th century.
Exactly. It's as if they're using the playbook of the white supremacist in the 1890s.
The three-judge panel conceded that this new map would make it harder for Black voters to elect their preferred candidate, but that wasn't enough to be deemed unconstitutional.
Especially given the racial and the racist history of the state of North Carolina, for that to happen at this time is painful. It hurts.
If plaintiffs decide to appeal, the case will go directly to the Supreme Court. And as filings for congressional candidates begin December 1st, the story will continue to unfold. But if history has shown anything, it's that the Black Belt's voters won't go down quietly. I'm Lena Hong for Shoresides. Thanks for listening.